Hello there, and today we're going to start working on how to use Blender. So today I'm going to actually teach you how to do the basics. It's going to be really cool because I'll show you a lot of the hotkeys I use, a lot of the settings, and I don't know, just in general learning and just me just teaching you straight up how to use Blender and all that stuff. Hey, you! Yeah, I see you. You're falling asleep over there. Jeez, what is wrong with you? I know tutorials are boring. Jeez, fine. I'll teach you the correct way, the ADHD way. Here, you can have Subway Surfers. There you go. My cat is attacking me. Damn it! You plugged my headphones. Jeez. Alright, there we go. No longer getting cat attacked. God damn, she was grabbing my leg. What is wrong with her, man? Anyways, time to teach you how to use Blender in the most ADHD way possible. Okay, first, go to Edit, go to Preferences, go to Add-ons. Make sure you have BlendKit installed. If you don't know what the heck BlendKit is, install it. Google it. Don't be lazy. Add extra mesh objects. Checkmark that. You can also search it on the top. Make sure you have mesh loop tools activated. Node Wrangler, make sure it's activated. And make sure you have these two activated. Specific Rigify. You might not have this one. Alright, go to Input. Make sure you have Emulate 3-button mouse. Navigation. Make sure you have Depth activated. And maybe this one, I don't know honestly. Key mapping. Make sure you have tab for pie menu and extra shading pie menu. We're gonna use it a lot. Make sure you go here, save preferences. Close it. Now that you've done that, we can start actually learning. First, middle click is to move around the camera like crazy. You can hold shift while middle clicking on your mouse to move around the camera like this. You can scroll in and scroll out to zoom in and do the right click it's just for shading smooth. It does this. If you right click and shade flat, it goes back to normal. If you press tab, you'll get options. You can go into edit mode. Edit mode has 3 modes. You just have to press 1, 2, and 3 to go between the modes. Number 1 is the vertice edit mode. You press G to move stuff and move vertices. You press S to scale vertices, or rather scale objects, just like this, while selecting them. You can do square selection. You can do if you click and hold and go to circle selection, you can select stuff with this little circle. If you hold it and do this selection, you can select stuff in a weird shape, kind of like this. I generally just use this one, because it's just more convenient and it just feels like Photoshop. Second mode, it is edge selection mode. You can select all edges and modify however you want. If you want to undo something, Control Z. If you want to redo something, do Control Shift Z, and it'll redo what you did. If you press 3, that is face selection mode. This allows you to select the face. You can press G to move it around and do whatever you want. Whoa, where did the edge go? Or rather, where did the face? We can just press Control Z to put it back. You can select all faces. If you press E, it'll do some weird stuff and extrude it out this way. You can also extrude one face if you select one face, and that lets you make another thing right here, and this is its own separate thing. If you select all faces, right click and extrude faces along normals, you can actually extrude them like this. Another option is right clicking and extrude faces individually, and this lets you extrude them individually to make a shape kind of like this. If we select these and press I, we can make an inset little face here and extrude that out. You can choose which way you want to extrude it if you press X, Y, or Z, and that shall extrude it in any of those directions. If you press I again and press I again, you get these little separated faces that you can also extrude out. So if you extrude these, it won't do anything, so you have to extrude them individually. Once you extrude them individually, you're gonna be able to get something looking like this. And there you go. If you want to get out of edit mode, you just have to hold tab and just go to object mode. If you want to go back into edit mode, just go into edit mode. Let's stay in edit mode, and let's just go into edge selection mode and just double click this little edge here. This will select all the adjacent edges related to that. So we can just double click on every single one here and move all the edges individually. Of course, this isn't the best way, so the best way to just modify something is by doing it piece by piece. Next, we're gonna select these faces right here. We're going to right click and do a subdivide. Subdividing lets you cut it into several pieces and make it a little bit more complicated. We can select these and extrude faces along normal to get shapes like this on the edge. If you want to rotate something, just select it, do Shift D to copy it. If you want to move it, you can just press Z, X, or Y to move it in those I'm going to move it in the Z axis so it goes up. If we want to rotate, you can rotate freely like this, or just rotate in an axis, let's say Z axis, and you can do numbers with your number pad or with your normal numbers by typing 90, and that lets you actually rotate it in an angle that is perfect. You can actually do angles in between, so in case you want to rotate Z axis at a 37-degree angle, or rather any other angle, you can, but I'm just going to leave it at 90 because then it's actually a little good. We can do Shift D, Z, and if we turn on this magnet, it actually gets stuck on little sections like this and does it gradually, giving you the exact measurement and distance. So if we do Shift D and then have the magnet active, it moves it in a correct Shift D, Z. We're gonna rotate this one in the Z-axis 90, and we're gonna rotate this one in the Z-axis 180. And there we go, we have all of the rotations of this object. Next, if you actually want to position your camera to get a cool angle of these things that we made, you can position it like so and do Control-Alt-0 to position your camera. If you want to resize your camera, you have to go over here to Output and change the resolution manually. This lets you change anything that you want. If you want to move the camera with your camera movement, press N on your keyboard, and this will, you can adjust the camera from here, piece by piece, to where you like it, or just go here to View, click on here and Camera to View, and you can adjust it live, just like this, to the position that you actually want. After you're done, make sure to uncheck so that you don't have to do that again. I just quickly turned on the hotkey so you can actually continue seeing most of the hotkeys because it's about to get a little bit more complex. After you're done with this, we're going to select every single one and do Control J to actually group all of the objects, and now they are all in the same thing. If you want to separate all of the objects, go into edit mode, do A, or press A on the keyboard, do P, and you can just separate them by loose parts, and that'll separate every single one individually. If you only want to separate one, make sure to just select a piece of it, do Control L, and then do P and select, and that'll only separate this one right here. Everything else will remain grouped. If you want to add a material to something, you can always go here to this, which is the material tab. You can remove this one, add a new material, change the color of it to blue, and then go to the material tab to actually see what you did. You can go to the original material and change it to a orange so that it's different from this. If you want to add a light, you can always use the one that's already in the project. Also, make sure you turn off this, that way you can move things freely. But you can also make your own light by doing Shift A and adding an object, like a light. You have three options of light. You have sun, spotlight, and area. Spotlight only illuminates an area in a circle like this. Area light lets you illuminate an area, and you can scale it with S to make it bigger. You can rotate it and make it light a specific area with a softbox. A point light is the one that's already in the scene, and it just illuminates everything indiscriminate. And a sun illuminates the whole area in the same light, so everything inside, no matter where you point it, will actually have sunlight. You can adjust the strength of the light right here. Every single light has wattage. You can change the wattage to be stronger in case you want more light. You can change the color of the light right here. If you want to add a object, like let's say a cube, you can do Shift A, Mesh, and you can choose in between several options. You have a plane. A plane is just a simple flat plane that actually has nothing on it. You can always just rotate it X 90 so that you can see it a little better. And there you go. This right here is a plane. You can actually change this one however you want by going into edge selection and extruding just like this. The next object is a cube. This is the thing you start off with in the project. It's what we made. It's what we used to actually make these things right here. Shift A, Mesh, Circle. Circle is just a flat circle that actually has no face. If you want to add a face to it, you can just do Edit, A, and then do F. And there you go. You should end up with a face kind of like Shift A. Mesh, if we do UV sphere, you'll end up with a sphere that isn't quite that good. You can always actually do Shift A, mesh, and do a round cube. This is a cube with rounded corners, but you can press over here and actually make it a circle by putting 1. There you go. And this is what you use to actually model any character or model. It's actually much more easier than with a UV sphere. Shift A, mesh, and you can generate rocks, you can generate the monkey, you can generate a grid, a torus, a cone, and a cylinder. Cylinder is self-explanatory, it's just a cylinder. You can edit this cylinder by going into edit mode, selecting this, going into face selection, select both of these, X to delete them, faces. You can go into edge selection, select these edges, extrude, and if you press S while extruding, it goes inward and lets you make a shape kind of like this. If you want to cap it off, you can always just press F, or the other option, which is much more liked in the community, is just doing it individually. So just do extrude S, and then M, then click M at center. That fuses all of the little vertices at the center. You can do the same here, scale, M at center, and there we go. We end up with a shape looking kind of like this. You can also cap off the cone initially just like that, or rather not the cone, the cylinder. A cone is this one. You can change the amount of stuff that the cone has, so you can reduce this down to a triangle, and this is an easy way to actually get a triangle so you don't have to make. You can add 4 sides to it, rotate it in the x-axis 90 twice, scale it in the y-axis, GY, GZ, edit, select the bottom part with face selection, and extrude to make a little sword point. We can scale it down and put it over to here. If you're ever rotating something and it rotates like this and you don't like that, you can always go up to here to Object, Set Origin, and set Origin Geometry, and that lets you rotate from the center of the object. If you ever wanted to sculpt something, you can always do Shift D on this cube, edit, A, right click, and do subdivide about 3 times or 4 times. After that, you can do sculpt and go into sculpt mode. After you're in sculpt mode, you should actually use quite a few tools. You can use this first tool to actually make it thicker, and you can use this tool to actually make it thinner or go inside it, just like this. If you want an easier time seeing it, you can always go to the view shading port. It makes it easier to actually sculpt things and have a nicer time. You can smooth things out with the smooth tool. This lets you smooth out any imperfections or stuff that you didn't like as much in your sculpt. You can use the inflate tool to actually inflate an area to just make a small little bubble. You can increase the strength of it if you feel like it's just a little bit too weak. There. And if you think it looks a little bit bad, you can always do right click and shade smooth by angle. This will smooth out all the areas. If you want it to be a little bit more smoother because it doesn't look too good, you can go here to modifier, add modifier, generate, and do a subdivision surface. This lets you smooth out a object so that it looks nice. Keep in mind this is visual, so once you actually apply the modifier, it'll be permanent. So make sure to actually keep it as a non, that way you don't have issues in the future. So you can just keep sculpting and it just keeps smoothing out. GY. Let's position all of our stuff for the render, putting them into position. If you want to add a material to all of this, you can, but you don't have to. Alright, next, let's go to the camera and let's adjust everything so that it's in the camera view and so that it doesn't actually interfere with it. We can rotate this one in the Z-axis while inside of the camera, and we can adjust stuff to our like. We can move around lights, and we can move around the sun. We can move around this so that it's pointing towards it, and we can increase its actual strength so that it's visible. We can change this to a slight orange. We can change this to a red. You can hold shift to do it gradually, or you can just move it without shift to not do it. Let's change this to a blue. Let's change this to the shader viewport. This lets you have actual shaders on stuff so that it looks like this, and you actually have the lights. If you ever want a realistic look, you can always go to render, change it from EV to cycles, and if you have a GPU, you can change it from CPU to GPU compute. And if you have issues where when you move around it looks really bad, you can always turn on denoise, and that'll keep it all smooth while you move around. And there you go, you have realistic lighting. If you ever want to make something metallic, you can always do edit, select this, do Control L, P to select it and separate it. We can go here to the material editor, remove this, add a new material, new. We can make this one a purple, and we can increase the metallic so that it's actually metallic. We can reduce the roughness to make it more reflective, or less reflective, depending on what you're looking. And if you want to make something out of glass, you can do again by separating this, selecting it again, removing its material, new, and changing this from principled BSDF to a glass BSDF, and this will change it to glass. You can reduce the roughness to make it more transparent, and once it's transparent like this, you'll need a light on it so that it's actually visible. Let's grab this point light, put it right here so that it's on top of the glass, and we can do Shift D on this little orb to move it in the x-axis and put it behind the glass so that it's actually getting refracted behind it, just like this. And there you go. If you remove all the roughness, it actually loses its little texture that it has on top of the glass. I usually leave it at this so that it's good. You can actually change the IOR so that it actually gets deformed more and has more refract, but there you go. Last but not least, if you want to actually render it out, all you have to do is press F12. But before you do that, make sure you go here to render and change this 4996 to a 250. That way your PC doesn't explode. And now you can actually press F12. Once your render is done, it should look something like this. You can zoom into it and see that it's actually quite pixel. If you don't want that pixelation, you can always increase the resolution, but that's all that you need to know. And there we go. That should be everything you need to know to actually do stuff in Blender. I really hope this video helped, and I really hope your ADHD did not stop you from actually learning something here in Blender. I will be making future tutorials on how to actually use Blender, but it will be less ADHD than this due to the fact that, you know, sculpting stuff and doing specific things is actually hard. In any case, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!